Climate has become even more contentious than it was under the new Abbott government. First with the scrapping of government funding for the Climate Commission, now with the last week of comments from the government, including from the Prime Minister himself, that cast doubt on the government's belief that bushfires might be connected to global warming. A person with an interest in both of those topics is Steffen, former commissioner with the Climate Commission, now still on the new Climate Commission as it is publicly funded, as opposed to taxpayer funding. Welcome in, Professor Steffen.
Thank you for your
time.
Thank you.
First, what struck you about Tony Abbott's comments this week that bushfires are simply a matter of history in Australia and our ordinary existence?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. One is the connection between bushfires and climate change is, of course, a scientific question. What you do about them may get into policy and so on. So I took that comment as being one on the science itself. The second thing, it did reinforce a very common misconception, and that is the framing of the connection between climate change and extreme events like bushfires is often done very poorly. That is, people say, well, extreme events have always been around. Australia's always had bushfires, which is true. But so have heat waves, so has been heavy rainfall. That's not the issue. So it isn't the question isn't, is climate change causing these extreme events, or are they due to climate change, or is this climate change? The real question is, can we see an influence of climate change on these extreme weather events? Are they changing the nature of these events? Now, that's the appropriate scientific framing and scientific question.
So, are they becoming more frequent? Are they becoming more intense, more dangerous?
The best way we can make a connection is through what we call extreme fire weather or high fire danger weather. These are the weather conditions on which fires break out. They're normally very hot days, they have very low humidity, and almost always have high winds. When we look at that over a 30-year period or longer, we find that in Southeast Australia, the number of these days has gone up. And that is almost certainly directly linked to the fact that the atmosphere is hotter. So that means we're loading the dice toward more fires and larger fires and more intense fires.
Just how much has the incidence of these kinds of fires changed over the last 30 years or so?
Well, we need to look back and get some very precise statistics. What we can say now is anecdotally, we've seen very big fires in the last 10 years. Canberra, 2003, Black Saturday, 2009, Tasmania around Dunelly, last summer, and now we have the fires in Sydney. Now, we have had fires, big fires in the past. 1939 stands out in Victoria. But to have this number of fires in only one decade, all large fires, all intense fires and all dangerous fires, is highly unusual. So this is an example of how the fact that the atmosphere is hotter than it was 50 years ago is increasing the likelihood of these types of fires breaking out.
And how much worse might the increase become if we don't meet our carbon objectives long term?
If you look at the emission trajectory that we're on now as a global society, which is at the upper end of the IPCC range of trajectories, we could see a doubling of extreme fire weather days by mid-century if we continue on the same pathway. That would greatly increase the risk of serious fires.
A doubling on where we are today?
A doubling of where we were, I think the baseline was about a decade or so ago. The most recent IPCC projections tend to use a period from about 1980 or so to 2000, 2005 as a baseline. So it's a fairly recent baseline that we're using.
Aren't you saying that without any doubt the Prime Minister was wrong 2 days ago when he made his statement about bushfires?
Well, I would say that statement is inaccurate. It doesn't reflect the scientific knowledge that we have.
Inaccurate and unhelpful?
Well, look, I would prefer that the discussion around various climate change issues around Australia would be based on the most authoritative, reliable science, rather than on innuendos about the science or misunderstandings of the science. In fact, that is the role of the Climate Council, is to try to cut through a lot of the toing and froing on the science and say, look, here's what the science actually says.
Okay, so unhelpful most certainly in terms of getting to the scientific truth of this.
Well, yeah, look, we would prefer that the science would be outside of the political debates and would be accepted by all sides. Now, on the surface of it, the coalition, the new government, has said they do accept the science of climate change. But yet a lot of the statements are equivocal or sometimes internally contradictory. I think we really need a clear understanding on all sides of politics of what the climate science is actually saying. There can be political debates about how we deal with it, what policy instruments we use, but the scientific base, I think, has to be accepted and well understood.
The Prime Minister made those comments. The Environment Minister cited Wikipedia as he sought to back the Prime Minister's comments. Is there a need for the most influential voices in our country on this in government to take a science lesson?
Well, let's put it this way. As a Climate Council, when we're communicating scientific information to the public, we use the most authoritative direct sources of information. That is the peer-reviewed scientific literature, major assessments of that literature like the IPCC, and the most authoritative, reliable observations of how the climate system is changing from the Bureau of Meteorology, for example. We don't go to sources like Wikipedia. I think it's important that the scientific information that's out there in the public discourse is based on absolutely the best science we can put forward.
Okay, this comes at a crucial time in terms of our debate on how to deal with the carbon problem. Politically, a very, very high-octane time, you might say. Are you worried about the influence of the standard of the debate on the policy decisions?
Look, we would certainly love to see a debate that shifted away from toing and froing on the science, which has been well understood in the scientific community for quite a while. These sort of debates don't occur in the scientific community. We'd like to see it sort of a shift away to that and get on to exactly what you said. We do have an issue with carbon emissions. It's a global issue. Australia is part of that. We're one of the major emitters. We need to play our role. The other thing I would point out is that almost all governments around the world, including our government, both sides of politics, have agreed a target of 2 degrees Celsius as the maximum temperature rise compared to pre-industrial that we would tolerate. Now, we're almost halfway there. We're at about 0.9 of a degree Celsius. Now, once you have that policy target, which is agreed, science can give you some pretty important insights as to what needs to be done to meet that target. And that's something, again, that we've been very clear in putting forward as a Climate Commission, now Climate Council. And the upshot of that is you can't burn all the fossil fuels that are in the ground. That would blow the climate system out into a wholly different state. So it's things like that that science can say, if you want to meet your policy targets, these are the implications. So I think science has a continuing strong role to play. But I think we need to be clear about policy targets like the 2 degree target. That's a policy target. But then once that target is there and agreed, science can say what we need to do to meet it.
Professor, it seems to me you've been polite, even gentle with our politicians in terms of their recent comments on this, and I don't blame you for that. But be blunt with us about the standard of the debate. How would you describe the quality of the debate on carbon and global warming at the moment in this country?
Well, look, if I look around the world, and science is very much an international endeavour, and I do still spend some time in the Nordic countries working up there, I would say it's a bit like night and day, the standard of the debate. If you go up to Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, there is no debate about the fundamental science. That's all well accepted.
And nor should there be.
Nor should there be. I agree. The issue, and the other issue or the other way they've tackled this issue is to make it a bipartisan issue. In other words, government shift. The government shifted in Sweden, I think, in 2006. But the climate policy didn't because it was agreed ahead of time. That gives big companies some confidence that investments they make will still be viable when governments shift. It gives people confidence that there will still be pressure to get emissions down and so on. And it yields dividends. If you look at Sweden's record, I think they lead the EU in terms of their rate of emission reduction.
Night and day. That makes the standard of our debate pretty poor.
Well, look, as I said before, I would really like to see the standard of the debate raised. I think this is an exceptionally important issue. It's an important issue for our children and grandchildren because of the nature of the climate system. It's a long-term problem, way beyond electoral cycles. And to deal with it effectively, we do need to have a much higher standard of debate.
And there was a reasonable unanimity among our major political parties until 2009. Do you now look back on the change that the coalition made in its approach to carbon policy back then as destructive?
Well, look, I'm not going to point any fingers to the Labor, the coalition, or whatever. What I'm saying is, for whatever reasons, the move toward a bipartisan approach fell apart. I think we've been ill-served by that turn of events, and we're paying the price now. I think I would simply make a plea as a scientist that the best way to go forward on this would be with a bipartisan approach. However that can be achieved, that's outside my area of expertise. But as a simple scientist, I said that I think it's been shown overseas that's the best approach to dealing with this problem.
And to close, Professor, are you an optimist as you look in on our political system dealing with this scientific problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on how many cups of coffee I have when I get up in the morning. If I get my shot of caffeine, I can be pretty optimistic. Sometimes I'm pessimistic. Look, it's a very I think confused situation now. There are a lot of good trends out there. China's starting to take really effective action. The U.S. is on track to meet 17% reduction in their emissions. We've seen 1 million homes in Australia, over 1 million homes with solar panels. We've seen a large rollout of wind in South Australia. So a lot of elements are coming forward. I think the real crunch time is to bring all this up to scale now. So we can see the beginnings of a new pathway. And we're starting to see as we roll forward that it is technologically possible. A lot of economists tell me that this can be done with little or no economic cost, maybe economic benefits. So as we go forward, we can see the beginnings of a new pathway that takes us to a low-carbon society. So that's the optimistic bit of me. The pessimistic bit is to say those are only the beginnings, and we've got a long way to go.
Professor Will Steffen, we're grateful for your time today.
Thank you very much.